All right, friends, the time is now. I have got myself mentally hyped up. It's time to get this thing running again. So we are going to get started, oops, right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Rusty Oliver Man. And my 1655 here, it has been apart with the scored sleeves of sadness, as the last time we used it, which has been like 2 to 3 years ago, it started to miss. And so got to looking, pulled the head, found out the head gasket was blown. And then upon further inspection, we found that some of the sleeves were pretty scored up, and there was no use to ignore that. So yeah, it was time to just, it's sad because the motor was brand new practically. And I never was happy with this set of sleeves and pistons. I feel like they were not as good a quality or something, and they didn't play the game. They just never did run great. And they obviously did not hold up to everything. So I took that apart. Then I found 2-piece rod bushings still, because this was not overhauled by me the last time. And I caught that one just in time. I could spin it by hand in there. So it was a good thing that this all happened, because it saved us a motor that is otherwise in good shape. So the thing that was holding us up for the longest time was the rods. I took them to the machine shop, and it was almost a year, I think. And finally got those back, and now it's been sitting for almost another year because of me not having time to do it. So I have pulled 3 sleeves so far, and I should have been more prepared with lighting and stuff to show you with the camera, but it's not important. It looks good down in there. However, there is a lot of it needs cleaning is what I'm saying. There's a lot of stuff like I don't want to say that it was radiator stop leak or that kind of thing, you know. So that's the way they all are. When you clean them out, there's stuff that accumulates around the sleeves. And this one is actually very nice. I mean, it's still clean because it doesn't have that many hours on it since it was last apart. And normally when I pull sleeves, I just go from underneath and get a block of wood and start hammering on it, and it'll pop out of there, because these are wet sleeves. They just, you know, they just more or less, they only seal at the bottom, and that's the only thing holding them. This lip in here lets them sit down in there up here, but so they're just hanging in there, and then the only thing that's really holding you is those O-rings at the bottom forming the seal, which keeps the water where it needs to be. So really, if you just bump them from the bottom, you can usually get them to pop out. Well, I decided to be a little bit more scientific this time, and I bought this Chinesium sleeve puller thing. And it comes with different sizes. And I used it to get the others out with pretty darn good success. It is kind of an awkward rig because there's so much stuff on it that is loose, but when you get it all set up, it works okay. So I did 3 of them last night, and then I thought, you know, I'm done for the night. And I also figured you probably wanted to watch, and the lighting wasn't really good enough for me to film. But I think we can make this happen pretty easy. I opted for this screw type thing instead of the hydraulic one, because I thought I don't really want a hydraulic one, because you could, if you got hooked around the wrong thing with a hydraulic one, you could do some serious damage in a hurry. I will say though that this rig is kind of loosey-goosey, and it's kind of hard to get it set up Maybe not so much on these, but I had to take the handle off, or these handles. I don't know if you can see them very good. You're kind of close. But I had to take all the handles off to do the one that was back by the fuel tank, because, see, I'm trying to do this without totally disassembling this tractor, because why should we? It's fine. It's in great shape, other than the parts that aren't. So, anywho, this little sleeve adapter thing is not perfectly sized. It's actually a little bit undersized, but I'm cool with that, because then there's no risk of you accidentally getting into the block anywhere. It's been working just fine. Usually wet sleeves aren't that tight compared to like dry sleeves, and we will investigate that on that cockshut. I'll tell you about that, what I discovered when we do that. But at any rate, this thing works pretty good. And like I said, these wet sleeves protrude through the block a little bit, so you have something to grab on before you would ever hit block. And it's just a little bit more than you can. I've been doing it with this wrench so that I can go easy instead of just pulling my guts out on it. The one thing they didn't have that you really need, they didn't give you anything to hold up there, at least not in my knowledge. And you kind of got to, because it'll want to spin the whole thing sometimes. So I just clamped a vice grip on there and went again. I really should get a piece of pipe. It would work better, but that's okay. Make sure you can see. You see how the sleeve is coming up out of there. And like I said, it doesn't really take much. This is kind of an odd feeling with the sleeve puller, because when you're driving on it, you can't, you don't get this sensation like I'm getting here. It's like a slow, gradual pull. There's no big, I don't know how to describe that, but it's nice and gentle. See, there we're loose. Now it's just effortless. And we'll back this off while we still have. Because you will drop pieces down in there. And right now I have the oil pan on for the simple fact of there is still some residual water around each sleeve. And I discovered that it was probably easier to contain a mess by leaving the oil pan just hanging in there with the drain plug out over a bucket, and then the water can drain in the pan and go down into the bucket, and then there's no big puddle right here where you're working. And then see, that thing just flexes to do the next thing. We'll let that sit. But yes, there's your sleeves, complete with O-rings. All some rusty deposits. That's the way a lot of them look. That's just how she goes. But yeah, we're sailing along. So now we get to rinse and repeat. And we're going to use this magnet to retrieve my wrench that I just decided to throw away for no reason. All right. Now this is the fun part, because I'm going to try to it's about like everything. About the time you figure it all out, you're done. But I'm getting to where I can kind of, like, I don't know, I can tell that we're hooked. I will verify before we go hog wild. That's one thing about this. I was wishing that maybe they had done something different with these tubes, like to hold them in place to help you, but there's really no way to do that unless you made that into an H-bar, because you'd need slotted length, because you got to be able to maneuver it so that it doesn't hit the thing you're pulling, you know. We're hooked there. Boy, we're just barely hooked there. I think we might need to re-Knudsen. Let's try that. I don't know what we did. There's those tubes getting centered. I don't think I'm right on that. No, I'm not right. It's the same thing all my teachers told me in school all the time. Oh, I see that. Oh, whoops. The problem is that tube. If I had the puller made to this sleeve size, this would be slightly different, you know. You could do this easier. But like I said, I like the idea that it's not big enough to get into the block in any way. Because you could really cause yourself a bad sadness if you didn't realize you were pulling on the webbing of the block. Oh, come on. It's coming. It's just a matter of... Now we can switch back to going by hand. It's starting to get warm in here again. We're gonna have to move our fan where it actually blows on this instead of just... There we go. Come on out of there. Come on out of there. Okay. I know what's happened. There we go. Alright. Turn the fan on, get some airflow in here in a little bit. Yep. This was one of the worst sleeves here. So, alright. Coming along. I'd like to do a little inspection before. I got a lot of, well, there's actually a piece of metal in here. I don't know if it's where it came from, but I found several little remnants of like a piece of wire that got down in here somehow. And what I'm guessing it is, I'm guessing that it was part of a water pump retaining ring, because I also found this little piece, which I believe is part of a water pump seal from times past. So yeah, you know, when stuff like that fails, where does it go? It goes in between here. So at any rate, this is our chance to give it another cleanup. Real good. There's some sandy brown mess. Alright, we are ready to do the last sleeve. How wonderful is that? Alright, we're gonna put that. Dang it. That sucks when that happens. That ain't the first time that's happened either. Okay, let's have a gander. Not a goose, just a gander. See what our deal is like. Can actually go. That's more better. I like that more better. Uh-oh. I knutsened myself. I didn't have that tube quite. I think it was gonna miss it, but it's just better to double check. We're in no hurry here, see, so. All right. The puller comes totally in pieces, and it actually has a little thrust bearing that you put on there, and that makes her just work dandily, you know. Now we gotta try to remember how all this stuff fits in here. All right. Yeah, rusty crusty. All right, so I have got a lot of work here that you're not going to want to watch because it's going to be super duper boring. As in cleaning this deck up, cleaning out the threaded holes, cleaning inside here where the sleeves were, and getting that all cleaned up and washed out where it's ready to essentially start putting new parts in. When we get to that point, we're going to take a new sleeve without O-rings on it, drop it in here, and we should be able to just stick our hand in and turn the sleeve in place. If it doesn't do that, we got more cleaning to do, because you can't just hammer them home. That's not how it works. You got to have them where they're loose in there, because as things heat up, they expand and then they contract. And if they can't do that thing, that's when trouble starts. One thing that I have seen in life's travels, and I don't know that that's 100% every time, but I've taken engines apart where they scored a sleeve, and you look at the bottom of that sleeve and somebody put silicone around the O-rings or whatever. Well, that silicone is enough to keep it from expanding and contracting the way that it should, And that's probably what caused the problem, because it's just awfully odd that that's the only sleeve that would cause the problem, is the one that the guy put silicone on. I've seen that several times, so I'm not saying that's 100% gonna happen every time, but you can't make up for block problems with silicone. It just doesn't work. But at any rate, we're going to take our time and clean this up good, and that's going to take me probably an hour at least or more to do all that. So like I said, there's no timeline. I'm just going to work at it till it's the way it needs to be, and we don't need to film that because that's super boring. So yeah. All right, I just got this done, cleaned probably for just the first go round. It is clean down in there. I can get a light down in there, but I got rags stuffed to catch the trash, and then what I'm going to do is, instead of pulling them up through the top, I'm just going to shove them through to the bottom so all the trash goes out instead of in. And I don't want any hanging up in here in places, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of deceiving when you look at it, because that water makes calcium like deposits in places, and you got to get that cleaned up and that sort of thing. So it even did it over here. I thought it looked like a crack, but that's not a crack, because it would have put water in the oil if that was a crack. It's just dirt. More of that calcium is like white in color, and it can fool you. So at any rate, yeah, there's no crack there. I'm sure we will be cleaning it up more before we put it together. I'll definitely hose it down with more brake clean and stuff to make sure I get every bit of trash washed out of there possible, since this is going to be a not taking it totally apart thing. I don't want trash to hang up in places. So we'll do that and clean it up real good, let it dry, and then we'll put the sleeves in. I was going to do test fitting of the sleeves, but I don't think I have time for anything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, oh, it's going to start to rain, isn't it? That's okay, we're inside. I'm going to just go through and I'm going to clean every hole, whether it needs it or not, you know. That just saves you a lot of time and effort, and it makes sure everything gets tightened the correct way, and there's no under, or you know, not getting it to the correct torque, like a false reading. So time consuming, yes. Worth it, also yes. You can take shortcuts if you want, but I wouldn't. Also, there are more holes here than probably what we'll need on the gas one. The gas blocks don't use all the gas heads don't use all the holes, but we will clean them all out anyway, so that it's nice and clean. Again, this is boring, so I probably won't film a whole lot of this, and these types of videos are probably boring anyway, so it's going to be a multi-part series. So I probably will just say that this is where we're going to leave this one, at tapping some holes, and in the next installment we'll fit sleeves, and we'll do our final cleaning and try to get sleeves installed, and then we'll see how far we get. You know, the videos you see of this may take 20 minutes, but it's going to be a lots of hours process, because you got to take your time. You can't, if you take shortcuts, you're going to pay for it later. So that's what I think we'll do. probably where we'll leave this one. So, yeah. After watching what you just saw, do you feel like your IQ has dropped lower than your credit score? Well, there's no reason that both of us should be miserable, so go ahead and hit that thumbs up and leave a comment. That stuff costs you nothing, and it really helps me out. Your banker may not approve, but I know mine will. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.